Hey guys, Joe here. So in this video, I want to talk about this huge problem or huge blow up that just happened at work, and how, what happened, why it happened, and how it's going to get resolved. So basically, two employees came to me on Thursday, right? And it was at the end of the day, and you can hear that they're like, I just knew they were really upset, right? And so the problem is, like, communication wise, is they only speak Spanish, right? And I shouldn't say only, but for the most part. So it makes, communicating more difficult. So anyway, they come in, and then they're basically complaining that the one employee, which is manager, they're basically like, he just doesn't do anything, right? And so they're super upset. And they basically said, like, if you don't get this problem fixed, like, we're leaving within, if you don't get it fixed by this month, then we're out of here, right? And so anyway, I said, okay, and then we had to bring in the other employee that's bilingual to translate for me. Well, the issue is it was the manager's girlfriend, right? So it was an uncomfortable conversation, and what makes it even more uncomfortable is that they all drive into work together, right? So the manager picks up, the girlfriend, and picks up the other two employees that were complaining, and brings them to work every day. So uncomfortable conversation, right? For, the girlfriend and stuff like that. And what this came down to is, and like, they were so upset, is because, like, they've been upset for a while. Like, when it first happened, it's like, probably like, this is bullshit, that kind of thing. And like, if that was day number 1, but it happened on day number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And basically it took this, little issue that, it's like this big, and then by the 30th day or 60th or whatever, it's like this giant freaking problem, right? And because it's, as I explained to the one employee when I was talking to her, is that it's almost like, a tally of, like, when it happens the first time, it's like, it kind of pisses you off, but it's like no big deal. But then the second time, it's like, the first time you tally, check mark. The second time is check mark, right? So it's almost like that second time, it feels like it happened twice at that point in time, right? And the third time, it's basically just a buildup. And so we've had this problem before, right? Not necessarily like this, but in my other businesses and stuff like that. And what it comes down to is a lack of communication, right? So it actually happened, and we were at the beach today with them, is my former, I used to be a general manager at McDonald's, and which is the worst job ever. And so if you're trying to get your kid to understand how bad some places are to work for, go send them there. And so anyway, same thing happened. She was originally she was in my office manager for my previous fence company. And then she, we no longer needed the position because we sold that company. And so she ended up becoming my babysitter. And so we agreed upon the price and, things like that. And then over time, I started, like, I was getting more and more pissed off because, like, I would come home and I'm like, why isn't this done? Like, why isn't that done? Or it's like, I come in and it's like, I know, like, this person can spend like 15 minutes a day helping me, like, clean and organize and stuff like that. And it's something that she's done in the past when it's slow in the winter time, because we would work from the office in our basement, where my wife would be like, yo, we're, it's slow, we're gonna go clean the closet or something. So she had no problem with it. And, because she was a former manager, but beyond that, like, I knew her for years, and, like, we were friends. So it wasn't weird to ask, like, hey, I need your help organizing. And plus, like, at that point with babysitting, she was there for 40 hours a week, right? If not a little bit more. So it was like, and the money we're paying was good money. And it's like, we need more than, if it was just a night out or something like that, you just wanted to watch, you want your babysitter to watch the kid. But if this is like a full-time person, like, they got to do more stuff than just watch the kid. Like, there's got to be some kind of cleaning, organizing, whatever. And so it was the same thing where, like, I was getting pissed off every, more and more pissed off each time. The first time, like, whatever. Second time, whatever. But it just kept on building up more and more and more. And I would say something to my wife, but it was kind of like a weird conversation because, like, I'm friends with this person, right? And so anyway, like, towards the end, I'm like, I end up writing this whole thing, and I'm like, I need a household manager is what it comes down to. Like, if you're doing this, like, this is what I expect. And she ended up just saying, okay, basically whatever. And then it was like that day, or it was like the next day, she literally just dropped her kid off at work, and she's like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this shit anymore. And it was like this big thing, and same thing, it came down to a lack of communication, right? Because, and it's the same for like any kind of relationship, whether marriage, if there's something that's been pissing you off, or something small, like it could be about the dishes, or like cleaning up, or whatever, and the first time it's fine, and it's like, well, what the hell. And then like the second, the third, the fourth, the 100th, the 500th, the 1,000th time, like the person ends up blowing up because they're so pissed off because it's been happening for so long, and then the other person has no idea. And then that's one problem. The other problem, like I was talking to the one fence company I'm helping out, is that like he started using subcontractors, because I'm trying to get them away from installing, and I'm like, you got to go, like, I don't personally recommend employees. I like go right to subs. If I was going to start a fence company again, I'd do the same thing. If I was going to start another company that's service-based, sub it out immediately. And so anyway, he has this guy that like is like, which is great that he can do commercial chain link and this other kind of stuff, and he's like, the work's really good for the most part, but then there is these because of a lack of communication, where it's like the sub's thinking he should be paid for this or paid for that, and the guy I'm helping is like, I feel like I'm being more than fair and all this other kind of shit. And I said, okay, so what I need you to do is get together, like, what do you expect from the subcontractor, right? So that way you can go to them and be like, look, this is what I expect. Can you do it, yes or no? And if it's a no, then it's like, well, I got to find someone else to do it. So like 2 weeks went by, and so he's like, or we sit down, and so he was talking about that guy again. I'm like, well, did you get the list together? And he's like, no. I said, all right, so I'm going to put something together real fast. I need you to just figure out pricing and stuff like that so you guys can come to an agreement. And so anyway, he's supposed to be doing that, because they said what ends up happening is when you don't express how you feel, when you don't confront the issue, because it might be uncomfortable or it might not seem like a big deal in that moment, but what happens is over time it keeps on building and building and building. So then when you end up going into and start talking to that person about anything, right? Basically, as soon as you get in their presence, it's almost like you have that bag. It's like you're carrying a backpack, and every time something happens, you're thrown in a backpack. Well, then you after a month, 5 months, a year, whatever, is every time you go to interact with that person, you have that backpack of all that shit that you've been like holding on to. And then so you immediately go into that conversation, whatever it happens to be, with a different, like a negative energy. So then what ends up happening is kind of like you're defensive, right? They're defensive right away. And I see it all the time. Like I see it with my wife and my son, which they're finally getting better. But it's like I dropped you. Oh my God, it's falling. So, and I see it all the time, where with my wife and my son, and it's like they go into a conversation before there's even any kind of conversations, like walking to the other person. You can see like the body language and everything else. So what you have to do is communicate, right? If there's an issue, like you got to talk about it, as quickly as you possibly can. I hope this doesn't fall. So that's that, right? So number one, the communication. Now, why did this all happen, right? And what did I do about it and things like that? Oh, because like even more shit happened. So I can go back to that if you're still watching. So what ended up happening? So I have this meeting on Thursday. I said, all right, give me, there's an issue. If you don't fix the issue, we're gonna leave, right? And because they're boyfriend girlfriend, right? So there's a lot of family members here, right? It just is what it is, which is a good and a bad thing. and I've dealt with that at McDonald's as well. So like if you have typically the family members, if the one has a good work ethic, the other ones do as well. Like that's how it usually works, right? The only problem is like what happens if there's some kind of family drama? What happens if there's like a wedding and all of them have to go to it? What happens if they'll go on vacation? Whatever. Like, so there is some downsides to this stuff as well. But anyway, so I had that meeting, and then I'm like, I'm gonna have a meeting on Friday. So it was the following day, and my wife, Maria, was like, even before this conversation, she's like, I think we should wait for this other person that's bilingual that we've been bringing in to help with coaching. But that wasn't until Wednesday, and this is Thursday, right? I'm like, no, we're not waiting, because I could just tell how upset they were. So that's why I had to meet, I met with them then, and then that's why we had a meeting on Friday. So anyway, I go through this meeting on Friday, and we used to have weekly meetings, and I got away from it, and it's like, we got to get back to these meetings, right? And so that's why we started with that one, because there was issues, right? And so the meeting was, I had an outline of it, but it was basically like, there was an intro, basically we have issues, how are we going to deal with the issues, that kind of thing, right? And so I said, look, we're having this meeting because, number one, like, we're way overdue. We used to have this all the time. There's a few issues going on that we, need to correct. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, basically start with what is the vision for the company, because there was several of these people. I'd say like half the people there, they've never heard any of this, right? Because we were going into peak season. I'm like just hiring to get people in the, because we need people right away. And so we didn't do the whole core value speech. We didn't do all this other kind of stuff. So we end up, I go through that. So the core values, right? Or I'm sorry, I go through the vision of the company, which I said, I went through like what's happening for this year and next year, what's the goals for 5 years, for 10, and for 20 years, right? And so, just real quickly, in case anyone really cares, is basically, this year and next year is basically getting prepped and ready, so that way we're going to open a second location. Ideally, by next year, we have that second location. By the end of next year, we have that second location, and we're basically getting that prepped over the winter, so that way we can start that location up in 2026. So that's what I'm looking at. And then, I said within 5 years, I want 5 locations. Within 10 years, I want 10 locations. And within 20 years, I want to be the largest fence supplier in the country, right? So, and I want to be doing at least $1 billion a year in revenue. So my aspirations are really high, right? And I said, look, I am not doing this for financial reasons. Like, if that was the case, I would have kept my fence company and I would have stayed with that, because honestly, I worked like 2 to 3 hours a week. I could have made a few small tweaks, and like, honestly, I left a lot of money on the table. I probably could have changed things around. I probably could have went from about that 2.4 range, wherever we were, to probably like 8 and 9, like pretty damn quickly. Maybe not that high that quick. I would say within the last year that we were running a business, we were at 2.3. I bet you within 2 years, we could have been at like 6. And I bet you within 5 years, we could have been at 10. Easily. Like, not even like easily. So I could have taken at least $1 million a year in profit for myself, working like 2 to 3 hours a week. Probably could have done that. Maybe 10 hours a week. But anyway, but I wasn't happy. So I'm not doing this for financial reasons. I just am doing this because other people doing it, why not me? That's what it comes down to. One of the things my former supplier said, that he used to be my former supplier, which I tried to get him to sell me truckloads before when we were first starting this whole thing up, which wasn't really the plan, but we ended up turning it into this. And he said, you think you're smarter than everyone else? Like, in a condescending way. And I'm like, I do. So I'm here to prove that. And I don't really think it's smarter. I just think outside the box. And honestly, I'm willing to just keep going and going and going. Like, this doesn't really work for me. Like, I enjoy it. So, but anyway, that's my goal. I want to start it. I want to do $1 billion a year. I want to have, we're going to have locations all across the country. I want to be the largest fence supplier and manufacturer in the country. We will be supplying to Lowe's and Home Depot. We will be bigger than Barrett and anyone else out there. So, of course, you're going to have to wait 20 years or a little bit sooner than that to see that, but that's where we're at. So anyway, so I say about the vision. And the vision, so that's just like the revenue, right? And so, but more importantly, it's like the impact that I want to make on the within for my company, for my employees, for the people that buy from us, and for the communities that we have operations in, right? And because at the end of the day, I really do want everyone that is around me to be successful in whatever way that means, right? So before I thought that was financial, if you, how much money you want to make a year? You want to make 100 grand a year? Okay, let's figure out how to do that for you. You want to make 300? All right, let's figure that out. But it's really not financial. It's really, at the end of the day, I feel like the money issues have to get solved first, and then after that, then you can kind of worry about the rest of the shit, because I dealt with that myself too, because for the longest time I was completely broke, and like the only thing I focused on is how to make more money, right? And then I got to the point where I didn't need to check my bank account every 14 seconds as a business owner, which if you run a business, you know at some point that, if payroll is getting pulled out Thursday, you're doing everything you can to make sure you have money in your account by Wednesday, right? And so anyway, I finally got to the point where I wasn't, rich. I'm not rich yet either. Again, that's not the goal, is to make a shit ton of money. It's just, but that will happen, is that I got to that point working 2 to 3 hours a week, not really worried about where the money was coming from. Always knew that if I spent money, I knew that I could easily make more. And I just wasn't happy. And so there's a quote by Tony Robbins, is that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I found that out because for my life, it's a little weird because my entire family is like your typical middle class, lower middle class, everyone, I would say everyone that in my family was probably making under 100 grand a year. Like every single person, right? Except for one, which was my aunt and uncle, and they owned McDonald's. So I saw like I guess I was fortunate because but my aunt and uncle that own McDonald's, they it's not your typical, they definitely have, I don't know how much money they have, but when I was there, they had 8 restaurants. When they end up selling everything, but they had 15 or 16 McDonald's. He started owning them, he's had McDonald's for 30 years. The dude's got money, right? But he never acted like that. His wife would have one car, he would have one car. Obviously they were nicer, they might have been $100,000 cars, but when you got 16 McDonald's, that's nothing, right? And so he never flaunted it, but you knew there was a ridiculous amount of money, right? But anyway, I'd see both sides, and you would always hear the things money doesn't buy you happiness and all this other kind of stuff. But, I was always that's a bunch of bullshit. I would much rather have that problem than, I'd much rather have money than not have money, right? The only problem that they don't tell you is that honestly, I think it might be tougher for people that have money. The reason why I think that is because, if you don't keep yourself occupied, your brain will fuck with you. Really bad, right? It will be your worst enemy, especially if it's got nothing else to do and you're already starting to think of problems and shit like that. It will freaking torture you to no end because you have to stay occupied. Well, for people that, if you don't have money, you have to work, you're moving, and you have one thing on your mind, which is I need to make more money. Of course, you're going to be you can go through depression and anxiety and all the other kind of shit. You can, but at least you know what your problem is, right? And because I would tell people that, I just didn't understand it, but Now I tell people, like, right now your problem, and like whoever I talk to, like employees, like we have people from like the Philippines and stuff like that are doing like virtual assistant stuff for me and things like that. And then one dude, he was working like 3 jobs because he's got, he has to help his parents. They're divorced, so he's helping the mom, he's helping the dad, and then someone else. And of course, you got to take care of his own needs as well. And it's like, look, right now I understand what you're going through. Like I've been there, done that. I've done like a few years where I'm working like 80 hours a week, where I'm working 7 days a week and I'm never home, and it's physical labor and mental and all that kind of shit. I've been there, right? And then but it's easier because at least you're like, you just need to get more money. So your problem at that point is money. That's it. Well, then when you get the money and you're no longer broke and you're no longer wondering, having to work 80 hours, like you can get by on working 40 hours, and like, you can actually afford food and gas and like whatever your necessities, and then you're still not happy. That's a horrible place to be. I know from firsthand experience, because it's like this whole time, like I've worked since I was 15, and I've done, shit before I was 15 as well, but like, I had a real job at McDonald's. It sucks. And it's the weirdest feeling of having the money and then being unhappy still, and then being like, you don't even know what to do at that point. It's a bad place to be. Just saying. So anyway, so like that's where, like with the deferred fence, and this is what happened, because I was able to get to 2 to 3 hours a week. The reason why I got to 2 and 3 hours a week is because at McDonald's it was so bad. Like, not like, and I tell people all the time, like, it's like, I feel like I still have PTSD from it. I haven't worked there in at least 10 years. Right? And not like haha PTSD. I mean like, and just throwing the word like PTSD. No, I mean like PTSD. Like, I mean like my body is fucked up from that. I think I have a lot of health issues, as far as not like, it's constant like joint problems, it's constant mental problems, it's constant like injuries and all this other kind of shit. And like a lot of it is probably because the amount of stress I had on my body for 10 years straight. Like, as a general manager, as a person that is not, like, I am not meant to manage, multiple, like, McDonald's is tough. Like, it's really fucking tough. So anyway, we get through all that, so we do that. And, so I'm like way off track. So anyway, we had the meeting, I talk about the core values. So I go into the vision of, the company. And, I said, again, like I will be the largest fence, supplier in the country and manufacturer in the country. I will be in the next 20 years. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this to make an impact. I am trying to make people successful in whatever that means for them. I want to help these contractors, the ones that are struggling and everything else. I want to help them, again, get to the level of success that they are looking for. My goal is taking these guys that are doing 200 to 400 grand a year in revenue to get them to $1 million my goal is in 18 months. So, and there's more beyond that. Like, I can envision having, when I have these different warehouses and stuff like that, I can envision having housing connected to that, like apartments and things like that, because I see what my employees are going through. I see what the workers of the contractors coming in, like I see this stuff, and it's like I want to make a big impact. I want to be proud of like what I've accomplished, and like, but for me, it's like I don't want to do something small. Like, I want to push myself because I know I can do it. I don't know, there's not much out there I don't think I can do, to be honest with you. So I'm here to like prove that. So anyway, talk about the impact, all this kind of stuff. And then I also talk, in the beginning of the meeting, I said, look, we're having issues. The reason why we're having these issues is because it's my fault. I wasn't as involved as I was supposed to be. You know, I wasn't in the back as much as I should have been. I basically promoted this person that was just building panels. Now they're a manager, and like they were managing like 12 people in the back. Like literally as like a 20-year-old with no fence experience that literally had been with I started having him manage within the first year. Like he started in like February. By the following February, he was managing other people. Like, and there was no, like, there was no development at all. So then, like, we were basically, like, it came down to, like, the people, like, he started at the same time as everyone else, and then, like, everyone's, like, upset because, like, they're like, oh, he's not doing anything, and all this other kind of stuff, which may be true, right? But I also know that, like, that ran back there. Like I knew, like I was able to stay in my office and get the shit that I was working on. I could do that all day, every day, because I knew it was going to be okay, right? When there's new fences and stuff like that, who's the one that's routing, like who's figuring all that shit out? He was, you know. And all the other issue is that like he was bilingual, so for him to talk to the other people, like he was, you know, more or less like the translator. So they're pissed off anyway. So yeah, we do the whole like, this is why we're doing it, blah blah blah. And then so we get to the end of the meeting, and he said, look, you know, you guys are going to see me in the back more often. We're going to put SOPs in place. We're going to get people cross-trained on different areas, so that way we don't have issues in case we lose people or, you know, whatever. We're going to have people doing different things, you know, instead of doing the same thing day in and day out. Like, you know, some days you're going to be doing this, other days you're going to be doing that. So that way we have this chance of, you know, training and cross-training. And also, like, if you have like 8 different people doing the same job, we're going to start finding out that there's easier ways and quicker and more efficient ways to do these jobs. We're just going to see that, right? And so even if we go back at some point to like whoever was doing the panels or whatever is always doing the panels, well, we're going to see that there's, number one, there might be a better way of doing this stuff. You know, because one of the core values for my company is ownership mentality. And so the way I explained it to them is like, you are doing this job for 40 hours a week. I expect you to be the expert in this, because at this point, within the first month, so it's like 20 days, you know, you've done that job for 160 hours within 4 weeks, right? That's more than I will ever do that job. I expect you to figure out and think of better ways to do it. I expect you that if you are in control of like how your station is set up, that looking at like, should it be done that way, right? So anyway, having all this cross-training stuff, it's going to allow us to get better and stuff like that. The other thing that's going to do is it's going to allow us to see what the potential is, right? And so that we can set the standards. Because if you have something that is right now for the panels, you know, they might be doing 200 a day, but we might see that other people can get like 300 done a day. I know for a fact, like our one person, Miguel, he is the fastest at pretty much anything, right? And I was telling them this story the other day, but like we were doing something where we were taking, we were unassembling or unscrewing an aluminum fence panel, right? And I'm so used to Miguel being faster than me at everything. And like, honestly, I'm always faster than everyone else in pretty much anything. And except for installing fencing. I will say I'm slow at that. So anyway, we're unassembling a panel. So it's like, there must have been like, there's 15 screws, right? So we start to unscrew these things. He's like on one side, I'm on the other side. Actually, there's a total of 30 screws. Yeah, because we had the top and the bottom. So there's like 30 screws. So he doesn't know, but I am racing him, right? I'm going as fast as I possibly can. I'm so focused on everything else. I'm like, right? So if there's 30 screws, I might have did 10. He probably got 20. But he didn't know I was racing him, right? So for someone like him, we might see that, like the other day, I think it was like 17 gates or something that he built. And like for the average, and like he doesn't move fast, like he's just very efficient with his time. Like there's just not any wasted steps or anything like that. He's very meticulous and everything else. I told him, like, if you would hustle, like, I guarantee you'd get like 25 and 30 a day done. Like, it's just would happen, right? And because some people are like, well, do you, like, some people are just naturally faster. I'm like, I agree with that. But if we see that it's possible to do 300 panels in a day, and then we have other people that are only doing 200 panels in a day, something's wrong here. Like, someone could definitely be faster, but like that much faster? Like at that point, what is that? Like it's 50% faster. You're telling me like they're just naturally 50% faster, and plus you've been doing this every day, and then someone new comes in here and after the second day they're already doing 50% more than you? No, that just means like you just weren't working hard enough, right? And I tell them, I'm like, I am not here. I'm like, you're gonna see me more. We're setting standards, we're putting SOPs in place, and like we are setting the standards, and I am going to hold every single person accountable to them. And I said, the goal is not for me just to be a raging dick, but it is to put order back in place and put clear leadership back in place until we can get someone else in there. Because at this point, I do not want to, and I am not naturally great at being the day-to-day operations leader. I'm just not. It's just not something I enjoy. I'd rather think of these crazy ass ideas that pushes the limits to whatever anyone thinks and figuring out a way to make it happen. That's what I enjoy doing. So my goal and like what my job personally is at this company is to, before I was like thinking of all these ideas, but honestly, I think my main job at this point is figuring out a way to recruit the top people in this industry, right? So if you're still listening to this and you are a freaking machine, or always told you are the best, or you just know you are the best, reach out. Like at some point in time, I don't care where you're located, we will have a location near you. I don't care where it is. So anyway, at this point, the only thing that's going to stunt our growth is having a lack of it's not even quality people. I want the best of the best. I want to make an impact. Like, I know there's people working at other suppliers, whether it's in the fencing or other industries. I know you at least used to like your job. You like what you do, but you see all the bullshit that's happening. I've seen it now like twice within the past 6 months, right? So you have these companies, the one right up the street, they've been around for, 80 years, 90 years, some crazy number, right? Family-owned business. They just were bought out not too long ago, right? So they got bought out by an equity group that bought another company, which then bought them and actually bought this other place, a little further away from us. Well, the one guy, which I hope you're listening, I really want to recruit. Everyone wants him, but he hasn't left yet. But and this is my job to be able to attract this type of talent, but like he spent years building up his team because he was the head of the vinyl production. Spent years. The average person on his team was there for 8 years. The average. There's people that have been around with him from the beginning for 20 years, some for 15 years. And they are great people. Do you know what happened? Like within a few months of the company getting bought out? They let go of their entire team. 20 people. 20 people that he recruited. 20 people that he trained. 20 people that he told them nothing was going to change when they took over, because that's what he was told. And then he was told like a week before they left, they were getting rid of him. I do not want to build at first. So I went to this mastermind group, and I went, and when I went there, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but basically what they did is taught you that as the owner of the company, your number one job is to make it into a sellable business, right? Where people can come in and, buy from you, right? The reason for that is because if an investor is willing to buy your business, that means it's set up properly. And if it's set up properly, chances are you won't even want to sell it, because a lot of times we get stressed out. It's why I sold the other fence company. Looking at it now, like, I could have done some changes. Obviously I could have made more money. I could have figured out a better way to make an impact, and it would have been an impact with my team, as opposed to like the people that were buying from us. Because like, when you're selling to homeowners, it's like a one and done situation. But so that's what I learned in there. But then I'm like, okay, like I get through that, I go through that, training or whatever. I'm like, okay, my goal was within 10 years to build a business that I am able to sell for $250 million. That was my goal. So to do something like that, I would end up needing to, get rid of key man risk and, basically reduce the risk from the business and, things like that, and get it to the revenue and the, not so much the revenue, but the profit that it needed to be, which in that case, looking at it, was like, okay, we need to get to about $50 million a year worth of profit. So that means we're going to have to do anywhere from like 160 to 175, $200 million a year in revenue a year. And it's like, okay, that's my goal, right? Not that I want to sell it, but basically that was my goal of putting this company together so that I can sell it. Which sounds great, right? So, because I know personally, if I, in 10 years, I build the company to where I need it to be, and I get $250 million, like, I'm pretty much, at that point, you're set, right? What else are you going to do? But now I see what happened to these two companies. So that was the one company that got bought out, and they got rid of his entire team. And then the other place they took over, I don't think anyone's left, right? And it's like, it's a shame. Now they're like, well, it's cause they are, they didn't want to do the changes and stuff like that. Maybe, right? However, the problem is like so it was a family owned business for both of them, right? So the one guy, started the business, he ended up, he was the one that personally started it, sold it, and is on to whatever. And so this other company, the other one that got bought out, it was like, I don't know, second generation, third generation. So the people started it, then whoever was owning it at that point in time, like that third generation, they sold it, they made a shit ton of money, right? And they were probably tired of the bullshit and whatever else. But the problem now is, like, once you start those events, you have this repeating cycle, right? Because like when you get bought out like that, so it's not like you have just a regular businessman that comes in and buys the business and like the goal is to keep it. My wife and kids are coming back, so I gotta end this soon. The goal for that is not like when this happens, it's not some guy, because it's like hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like an equity group, right? Well, it's not a buy and hold strategy. It's a buy and sell strategy. It's a buy, improve, sell strategy, right? Because they basically look at the business, they look at what the operations that they can change, the tweaks they can make and stuff like that. And they say, look, if we can buy this business for $200 million and we make these small changes and we can sell it in 3 years for $250 million. Obviously, they made an extra 50 there, but then they're also making a profit from the other 3 years. So that's where their game plan is. Then the next person comes and buys it because they think I can make these improvements, then sell it. It just happens over and over and over again. So now you have this family-run business that you build over time, and now you have nothing, something that they just keep selling. So anyway, they're walking back in the car. I will talk to you.